Harassed by her ex-husband, a pregnant wife finds protection in her billionaire CEO husband, a whirlwind of secrets and raw tension. Set in the hushed corridors of Los Angeles' elite business circles, Harper Lane Montgomery, glowing, expectant, and recently married to a powerful tech magnate, should have been basking in the serenity of a luxurious new life. Instead, she found herself hunted and tormented by the one man she thought she had escaped for good, her ex-husband, Mason Lane. When his obsession turned sinister, Harper realized that wealth couldn't shield her from dread, but perhaps love and unshakable loyalty could. As her new husband, Sebastian Montgomery, vowed to protect her at all costs. A perilous dance of power, revenge, and redemption began. Harper had been just 25 when she first married Mason Lane, a childhood friend from her small hometown of Bend, Oregon. Back then, Mason seemed kind and supportive, a beloved figure in the community who volunteered at youth sports events and always had a friendly grin for neighbors. But beneath the charm simmered a deep current of jealousy and control. Over time, his demeanor darkened, erupting into unpredictable rages that chipped away at Harper's self-worth. When she finally summoned the strength to leave, she filed for divorce and requested a restraining order. By then, she'd weathered months of emotional torment and the occasional bruise hidden beneath long-sleeved blouses. The divorce turned bitter. Mason clung obsessively, calling at odd hours and leaving cryptic notes in her mailbox. Harper tried to move forward. She took a job as a junior marketing associate at a rising tech startup in San Diego, pouring herself into work and craving a life beyond the wreckage of her past. It was at a tech conference in Los Angeles where fate intervened. She crossed paths with Sebastian Montgomery, the enigmatic billionaire CEO of Montgomery Dynamics, a man known for both his business genius and philanthropic causes. Tall, composed, and radiating quiet authority, Sebastian was intrigued by Harper's fresh perspective on brand storytelling. Over coffee, they talked about alignment between his expansive ventures and her firm's innovative marketing concepts. A spark lit, professional at first, then gradually personal. They stayed in contact. Sebastian became a mentor, then a confidant. Phone calls evolved into dinner meetings whenever Harper was in LA. She found calm in his steady presence. Though she kept the scars of her past with Mason hidden, Sebastian sensed the caution in her eyes. In his gentle, non-intrusive way, he offered her the emotional steadiness she had never known. Months passed, and Harper's company eventually relocated her to Los Angeles full-time, giving her more time with Sebastian. Their friendship blossomed into a romance. Sebastian's protective instincts stirred when he glimpsed traces of her unease. His protective instincts flared when he caught glimpses of her anxiety. Eventually, Harper opened up to Sebastian about Mason's controlling behavior and the intimidation she had endured. Though Mason had been silent for a time, she couldn't shake the lingering sense of dread. Sebastian, moved by her vulnerability, made a solemn vow she would never have to face fear alone again. They were married in a small yet elegant ceremony held in the Montgomery family's private garden estate just outside Malibu. Guests included select philanthropic partners, a few trusted business allies, and Harper's closest circle, like her longtime friend Kayla Simmons, who had witnessed the unraveling of her previous marriage firsthand. With a soft shimmer in her eyes, Harper believed she was finally free from Mason's grip. Married for barely 8 months, Harper and Sebastian received miraculous news. She was pregnant. Overjoyed, Sebastian enveloped her in added care, shielding her from any stress his global ventures might bring. For Harper, it felt like a dream she had once feared she'd never experience. A devoted partner and a baby on the way. But a ghost from her past was about to reappear. The first sign came in the form of a chilling voicemail from an unknown number. Mason Lane's voice, thick with bitterness, demanding she speak to him immediately. Harper's heart pounded. She hoped it was an isolated moment, a mistake, a one-off. But little did she know, it was the beginning of a dark new chapter that would threaten her peace, her marriage, and the life growing inside her. Fresh from an appointment with her obstetrician, Harper was still buoyed by the rhythmic sound of her baby's heartbeat echoing in her memory. She clutched the ultrasound photo, a treasured first image of the child she already loved. Sebastian, caught in a critical international conference call, had missed the appointment but had apologized profusely, promising to be there for the next one. Stepping out onto the lively streets of downtown Los Angeles, Harper tried to hail a cab amid the usual chorus of screeching tires, honking horns, and tourists marveling at the skyscrapers. Then a chill traced down her spine. Across the street, she spotted a familiar figure, tall, rigid, clad in a dark hoodie. His stance was unmistakably tense. Before she could confirm what her instinct screamed, a delivery truck rolled past, blocking her view. When it cleared, the figure had vanished. Her mind reeled. Was it Mason? Could he have really followed her to LA? She tried to convince herself it was just paranoia. After all, his last known location was in Sacramento, over 5 hours away. Still, the feeling of unease wouldn't leave. The next day, Harper returned home to find a small card slid under her apartment door. It held no message, only 6 words scrawled in rough print. "I know where you live now." Panic surged through her. She wanted to tell Sebastian, but he was en route to Tokyo for a vital business summit. Harper hated the idea of weighing him down, especially when his international negotiations were so delicately poised. Instead, she turned to Kayla Simmons, who had recently relocated to Los Angeles for her own marketing role. Kayla, alarmed by the note, insisted that Harper contact the police immediately. Officer Daniel Reyes, a broad-shouldered detective from the local precinct, took her statement with a professional calm. Harper explained her ex-husband's history, his threats, his emotional abuse. Detective Reyes listened carefully as he filed the report, but cautioned that without direct evidence, their hands were largely tied beyond initiating a protective watch. He advised her to stay alert and document any further attempts at contact. Back at Montgomery Tower, Sebastian's sleek headquarters, Harper did her best to focus on her branding projects, but every time her phone buzzed, dread clawed at her chest. Each ring felt like a threat until it turned out to be nothing more than a colleague or a telemarketer. She ached for Sebastian's steady presence. A flicker of relief arrived when he called late one evening from his hotel suite in Tokyo. Hearing his calm voice, Harper nearly told him everything. But she stopped herself, afraid to derail the major deals he was about to close that weekend. She retreated to the Montgomery penthouse, its contemporary lines, panoramic views of the Pacific, and state-of-the-art security should have felt like a haven. Yet as she sorted through the day's mail, her breath caught. There was a plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a single line scrawled in uneven handwriting. "Remember me, Harper." A wave of nausea rolled through her. Her ex-husband was haunting her again, invading even the places she thought were safe. She texted Kayla, hands trembling. Could she keep pretending this wasn't happening? Could she hope Mason would fade into the background? Or did she need to come clean to Sebastian and risk disrupting his delicate negotiations abroad? She hesitated. But deep down, she knew. Time was running out. Every passing day, Mason inched closer. The danger grew, and the secrets she kept could unravel everything. By Monday morning, Harper realized she had to confide in someone with true authority. Kayla's support was steady, but her reach was limited. The police were constrained by the law. So, in a moment driven by desperation, Harper reached out to Juliet Cross, Sebastian's chief of security. Juliet, a no-nonsense former federal agent, was legendary for her cool head and unwavering loyalty to the Montgomery family. Approach and unflinching loyalty to the Montgomery family. They met in a secure corner suite at Montgomery Tower, where Harper laid out everything, the strange sightings, the ominous letters, the threatening voicemail. Juliet listened with laser focus. Her hawk-like stare never flickered. She asked direct, no-nonsense questions. Had Mason physically confronted her? Did she have any concrete evidence? But Harper had little more than cryptic notes and fleeting glimpses. Still, Juliet promised they would ramp up security around the penthouse and closely monitor any suspicious activity near the building. That evening, as Harper sat at home scrolling through campaign proposals, her phone lit up with an unknown number. Her heartbeat quickened. She picked up. Silence. Then came a breath. A low, deliberate inhale, followed by Mason's chilling voice. "You think you're safe in your billionaire tower? You owe me a conversation, Harper. Stop pretending I don't exist, or I'll come find you myself." The line went dead. Her phone slipped from her fingers as tears welled up. Enough was enough. She grabbed her phone, ready to text Sebastian in Tokyo. But just as she finished typing the first few words, a call from him came through. She answered, masking the tremor in her voice. He was jubilant, excited about the contract he'd just signed. He spoke of how this expansion would elevate Montgomery Dynamics' global reach. Harper smiled through her fear, offering encouragement, swallowing her panic to avoid spoiling his well-earned triumph. He told her he missed her deeply and would be back in 3 days. She murmured that she missed him too, though behind her words was a mounting terror. That night, Harper tossed and turned in bed. Each subtle kick from the baby within reminded her that she had more than herself to protect now. Her mind spiraled back to the aftermath of her divorce, how she once believed Mason's grip had been broken. She remembered their last argument, the accusations Mason hurled, claiming she owed him something, even after their marriage crumbled. She recalled him shattering a framed photo in a fury, the shards glittering on the floor, remnants of something she'd once called love. Could that rage have turned into a full-blown vendetta? By morning, Kayla pleaded with Harper to come stay at her place for a few days, but Harper declined. The Montgomery penthouse, armed with multiple layers of security, still felt safer. Later that afternoon, Juliet informed her that surveillance footage from the building had captured a hooded man loitering near the lobby entrance 2 days prior. Though they couldn't confirm his identity, the figure's stature and movements chilled Harper's blood. She knew she couldn't keep delaying the inevitable. Sebastian had the resources to help, and pretending the threat didn't exist was no longer a viable option. Just as she was bracing herself to tell him during a video call, another letter was slid under her penthouse door. This one bore a crude drawing of a pregnant woman with a slash across her belly. Beneath it, in jagged handwriting, were the words, "Talk or I'll do worse." Harper's entire body trembled. Her ex-husband had crossed a chilling line. He had fully spiraled into darkness. Just then, the elevator chimed. Juliet stepped out, her expression severe. "There's something you need to see, Mrs. Montgomery," she said, her voice tight with urgency. Harper instantly knew. The situation had escalated far beyond cryptic threats. Fear spiked in her veins. If Mason was truly this unhinged, then everything, her safety, her baby's future, and the delicate hope she'd built with Sebastian, was at risk. Juliet led Harper down to a secured room on the lower level of the penthouse, usually reserved for confidential negotiations. On a large monitor, a surveillance video played on a loop. It was nighttime footage from a street-facing security camera across the road. A hooded figure approached the front door. He tried the handle, locked. Then he turned, looked straight at the lens, and lifted his hood. Mason Lane. His face, unmistakable, twisted in a sneer. He mouthed something, words the camera couldn't capture, then melted into the shadows. Goosebumps rose along Harper's arms. It was undeniable now. Mason had found her. He wasn't just threatening from afar. He was physically invading her new life. Juliet froze the video, her jaw clenched. "He's escalating," she said flatly. "I'll have our legal team send this to the LAPD immediately. But I strongly suggest we inform Mr. Montgomery now." Harper's thoughts raced. Her eyes fixed on the paused image, Mason's once charming gaze now blazing with warped resentment. She remembered how he used to pin her wrist when she disagreed with him, how he'd deliberately interfere with her job opportunities out of possessiveness. She had believed those memories were part of a closed chapter. But now they surged back, sharper than ever. She took a shaky breath and nodded. "Set up the call," she told Juliet. Sebastian was still in Tokyo. But time zones be damned. This couldn't wait. Within the hour, the secure line connected. His deep, steady voice filtered through the speaker. "Harper," Juliet said, "it's urgent. Are you all right?" Her composure cracked. "No," she whispered, her voice quivering. "I'm not. I'm so sorry to bring this on you right now, but Mason's back. He's been following me, leaving threats. We have security footage. He was right outside our building." A stunned silence fell. Then Sebastian's tone shifted, anger rippling just beneath the surface. "He threatened you again? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She swallowed hard. "I was afraid to worry you. Your negotiations were so important." Sebastian's voice softened, threaded with concern. But beneath that softness was something more. Hurt. The kind that comes from loving someone so deeply, it bruises when they carry burdens alone. "You and our baby come first. Always. I'm on the next flight home. He turned sharp. Juliet, tighten security. Keep Harper inside unless absolutely necessary, and have legal start working on a restraining order, immediately if possible. Tears welled in Harper's eyes, relief mixing with guilt. She hated the feeling that her silence had left him blindsided. She ended the call with a quiet promise they'd see each other soon. Juliet swiftly ushered her into a newly fortified routine. 2 discreet bodyguards assigned to her, a secured private elevator system, and 24-hour monitoring. That evening, Kayla dropped by with a bag of groceries and comfort essentials. They shared dinner in the penthouse lounge, trying to distract themselves with light-hearted movies. But Harper couldn't laugh, not fully. Her smile always came a beat too late, eyes flickering toward the hallway. Each time the elevator chimed or her phone buzzed, Harper jumped. The anxiety was unrelenting. Kayla did her best to soothe her, insisting Mason would end up behind bars if he dared push any further. But Mason's greatest weapon had always been his unpredictability. He thrived on intimidation, on making her feel like she was never truly safe. That kind of fear didn't shout, it whispered, crept into her bones and settled there. The following morning, a private investigator retained by Montgomery's legal team reported back with grim findings. Mason had no permanent address. He was drifting from one budget motel to another across the outskirts of Los Angeles, paying cash, leaving no digital trail. The idea that he could appear at any moment hung over Harper like a storm cloud. She paced the penthouse, one hand instinctively on her belly as the baby shifted. Every movement reminded her what she was fighting for, and what she might lose if she underestimated him. She longed for Sebastian's arms around her, for the stillness he brought. But until he arrived, Mason's threat festered in her thoughts. Then, just before dawn, after a night of broken sleep, the penthouse door burst open. Sebastian rushed inside. His hair was tousled, his eyes bloodshot from travel, but filled with intense worry. Without saying a word, he pulled Harper into his arms and exhaled a breath he'd been holding for too long. He clutched her like she was the only truth in a world that had been unraveling. In his embrace, the cold shell of the penthouse seemed to melt away, replaced by something warm and solid. But both of them knew the fight wasn't over. Not yet. With Sebastian home, the dynamic shifted instantly. He moved fast. A formal complaint was filed, now backed by the surveillance footage. The Montgomery legal team pushed through the night, securing a restraining order requiring Mason to stay at least 1,000 feet away from Harper. Violation would mean immediate arrest. Meanwhile, Juliet tripled the security detail. Were stationed in the lobby, the hallways, and even discreetly on the street. Sebastian did his best to maintain a sense of normalcy for Harper's sake. He encouraged her to keep up with her daily routine, if she felt able, meeting Kayla for lunch, working on branding projects. But no matter where she went, 2 plainclothes officers from a private security agency followed closely behind. It felt suffocating at times, but Harper admitted it was better than living paralyzed by fear. Despite the added precautions, her nightmares intensified. She would wake at odd hours, drenched in sweat, trembling from visions of Mason's twisted grin. Sebastian would stroke her hair, whisper soothing words, and remind her that she was safe, that no one would hurt her again. Some nights, she curled into his arms, tears slipping silently down her cheeks as the ghost of her ex-husband's control clawed at her memory. One evening, in an attempt to revive some romance, Sebastian prepared a quiet candlelit dinner in the penthouse. For a moment, Harper let herself feel at ease. Then her phone buzzed. She checked the screen, another unknown number. Her heart clenched as she read the message. "Your fancy husband can't save you forever. Watch your back." The phone fell from her hands. Color drained from her face. Furious, Sebastian picked it up. "I'll handle this," he said, voice tight with rage. He immediately forwarded it to Juliet, who began tracing the number. But it was another burner, untraceable. Still, it confirmed one thing. Mason hadn't disappeared. He was watching, waiting. The moment shattered their brief reprieve, leaving them both rattled. As a protective measure, Sebastian decided to accelerate a long-standing plan. Months ago, he'd purchased a multi-million-dollar townhouse in a hyper-secure gated community tucked into the Hollywood Hills. It was meant to be renovated into a family-friendly estate before the baby arrived. Now, Now, he fast-tracked everything, determined to build a fortress Mason couldn't breach. While the penthouse was secure, it was still too visible. The new house would offer seclusion, silence, and seamless security built right into the walls. But Harper wasn't entirely convinced that relocating again would solve everything. She respected Sebastian's decisiveness, but one question lingered. Would Mason truly stop just because they hid behind gates and cameras? Or would that isolation only feed his obsession? In a quiet moment, Kayla voiced a similar concern. These men, they don't always vanish just because you build walls, she said carefully. Sometimes you have to confront them, legally, maybe even directly. Harper shuddered at the idea. Seeing Mason face to face, she didn't know if she could handle the flood of trauma that would surface. Meanwhile, his psychological warfare only escalated. One afternoon, a masked courier delivered a package to Montgomery Tower. Inside was a broken baby doll, its arms violently snapped off. Tucked beside it was a note scrawled in sharp ink, "Your time is running out." The entire office went on high alert. Harper's stomach twisted with nausea. The message was unmistakable. Sebastian, incensed, demanded a direct meeting with the LAPD's police commissioner, urging stronger intervention and faster enforcement. But even then, official channels moved sluggishly. At best, the authorities could offer the restraining order, which might or might not deter a man as relentless as Mason. Frustration simmered in Sebastian. He was a man accustomed to solving problems, buying out threats, negotiating mergers, navigating power plays. But Mason wasn't a business rival. He wasn't someone who could be silenced with a contract or outmaneuvered in a boardroom. He was unstable, dangerous, and obsessed. Uncertainty churned inside Harper. Part of her wanted to disappear, stay hidden, let the fortress around her shield everything. But another part, fierce and growing, urged her to confront him. She was carrying a child, new life. She refused to let Mason stain it with fear. Without telling Sebastian, she made a quiet decision. If Mason truly wanted a confrontation, she would find a way to end it, but on her terms. She didn't intend to be reckless. She wanted closure. But the longer she stayed silent, the more power Mason held. He thrived on her fear, fed on her silence. During a quiet coffee date with Kayla, Harper finally voiced her plan. She wanted to arrange a controlled meeting with Mason, under tight police surveillance. Kayla nearly choked on her latte. "Are you insane?" she hissed, her eyes wide with alarm. "You want to meet that psycho face to face?" Harper gently rested a hand over her growing belly. "I'm tired of running, Kayla. He's haunted me for years. If I can prove I'm not afraid of him anymore, maybe he'll finally back off." Kayla shook her head, dismayed. "Confronting a stalker rarely ends well, especially one with a history of violence. And you're pregnant, for God's sake." She leaned in, her voice lower. "Talk to Sebastian, he'll know a better way." But Harper was torn. Sebastian, protective by nature, would never agree to such a high-risk plan. His entire philosophy revolved around fortress-like protection. He wouldn't understand that this wasn't just about security, it was about regaining control. Each day as her pregnancy advanced, the tension in her chest swelled. She longed for peace before the baby came. A fresh start, untainted by Mason's looming shadow. Then a potential opening appeared. Detective Daniel Reyes returned with news. Mason had been spotted on a security camera near Union Station, heading out of the city. From the building's vantage point, Sebastian waited with a small security detail. Harper stepped into the abandoned warehouse alone. The musty air clung to her skin, thick with dust and decay. Motes of grit spun in the dim light, slanting through broken windows. She gripped her phone tightly, already set to speed dial Detective Reyes. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She thought she might faint. Then, from the shadows, Mason emerged. His face was drawn, cheeks sunken, eyes burning with a manic intensity. "Hello, Harper," he said, voice echoing with venom. "You've got some nerve, calling me out here." The rage clenched in his fists. The toxic pull of his manipulation clouded the space like smoke. But Harper didn't flinch. "We need to end this," she said, her voice steady as she raised her chin. "I'm pregnant, Mason. Your threats won't change that." Seconds passed, razor sharp, hanging in the still air. Outside, the team of officers tensed. Every eye locked on the warehouse entrance. The trap was set. One wrong move, and it would all unfold. Inside, Harper stared directly into Mason's hollowed face. Desperation had worn him down, but rage carved new, frightening lines. Every breath she took felt amplified by the eerie silence, her heart pounding in her throat. She placed her hands protectively over her belly. Mason's eyes narrowed. "How dare you ignore me?" he growled, stepping closer. His footsteps echoed like gunshots in the vast emptiness. "You think you can just run off, marry some billionaire, and forget I ever existed?" Harper squared her shoulders. "You and I ended a long time ago. I owe you nothing." Her voice wavered, just slightly, but held its ground. Mason sneered. "Oh, but you do. You humiliated me, left me with nothing, and now you parade around in that penthouse pregnant with another man's child? How convenient." Anger flared in her chest, but she kept her tone measured. "This isn't about you. It never was. I'm not scared of you anymore. Leave me alone, or deal with the law." Mason's face twisted, revealing the full madness behind his glare. He barked a hollow, bitter laugh. "You think a restraining order, or your shiny CEO husband can stop me?" Suddenly he lunged. He grabbed her wrist hard. She gasped, pain shooting up her arm. "Let go. You're hurting me." Outside, movement snapped into action. Detective Reyes, hidden in a nearby building, gave the signal. Sebastian, watching everything from an adjacent office window alongside Juliet, flinched in alarm. Plainclothes officers began moving in, silent, fast. But inside, Harper was locked in a blur of fear and adrenaline, struggling to free herself. She hissed, her heart hammering with fear, for her baby, for herself. Mason's grip tightened, shoving her back against a crumbling wall. She whimpered, but a surge of protective instinct roared to life. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about protecting the tiny heartbeat inside her. Harper thrust forward, slamming both hands into his chest. Mason stumbled back, stunned by her sudden defiance. Rage lit up his face. He raised his hand as if to strike her. And in that split second, time seemed to fracture. A voice thundered from the entrance. "Step away from her." Sebastian stormed in, flanked by two of his private security agents. His eyes blazed with a fury Harper had never seen. He had promised to let the police handle it, but the moment Mason laid hands on her, that promise dissolved. It wasn't strategy anymore. It was instinct. Pure, visceral instinct to protect the woman he loved. For a second, Mason froze, caught off guard by the interruption, his face flickering between shock and contempt. Then he scoffed. "The billionaire prince swoops in. You think money fixes everything? This is personal." His voice cracked with venom, as if Sebastian's very presence ignited something unhinged in him. He lunged again, reaching for Harper. But Sebastian moved faster. He stepped between them, shoving Mason back with force. The sound of the impact echoed in the warehouse, flesh against fury. Mason snarled and swung wildly. His fist grazed Sebastian's cheek, leaving a red streak. Rage exploded in Sebastian's eyes. Harper screamed. It was the kind of scream that split air and cut through chaos. That scream was the trigger. In a blur of motion, the police swarmed in, Detective Reyes leading the charge. Officers tackled Mason to the floor as he cursed and thrashed, kicking against the concrete. Within seconds, he was in handcuffs, but he fought like a man possessed, dragged down by the very rage that once gave him power. Harper collapsed to her knees, breathless, drained, the adrenaline crashing out of her system. Sebastian dropped beside her, voice trembling as he checked her for injuries. His hands shook as they hovered over her arms, brushing away hair, blood, fear. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she cradled her belly. "I'm okay. I think the baby's okay," she gasped through sobs. A paramedic rushed over to examine her, while Detective Reyes read Mason his rights. Mason continued to spit threats and obscenities, but this time, it didn't matter. The police had seen everything. He was done. There would be no loophole, no escape from the law now. The cage he'd built for others had finally closed around him. As the chaos slowly ebbed, Harper felt a wave of release wash over her. The confrontation had ended violently, but it was over. Mason was in custody. Sebastian helped her to her feet, never letting go of her hand. Outside the warehouse, reporters had gathered, somehow tipped off to the scene. Cameras flashed, voices called questions, but Harper barely registered them. She leaned into Sebastian's warmth, focusing only on the safety of the moment. The noise outside couldn't touch the stillness she had reclaimed inside. That night, back at the penthouse, they received confirmation. Mason would be held without bail, pending formal charges of assault and stalking. Though Harper's arms bore bruises and her emotions were raw, for the first time in years, she felt something close to freedom. Sebastian, jaw tight, shoulders still taut with tension, sat beside her in silence. Then he spoke, quietly but firmly. "I'll never let anything threaten you or our child again." And as Harper curled into his side in the hush of that evening, she let the relief wash through her. The worst. It was over. Now came the task of rebuilding the sense of safety Mason had spent years trying to erode. But with Sebastian's unwavering devotion and her own newfound courage, Harper believed she could face whatever came next. Still, the echo of his voice lingered. Her body was safe, but her mind kept replaying the moment he raised his hand. Her immediate concern turned to the baby. The confrontation had shaken her deeply. She kept one hand pressed to her belly, whispering apologies she wasn't sure her child could hear. Sebastian didn't hesitate. He called in a private obstetrician, Dr. Margaret Lowry, who examined Harper thoroughly. Despite the bruises and emotional shock, the baby's heartbeat was strong and steady. Tears of relief flowed freely as both parents clung to the sound. It was the loudest thing in the room, and the only thing that mattered. Dr. Lowry advised Harper to rest, manage her anxiety, and steer clear of further stress or confrontations. "Your body's been through battle," she said gently. "Now it's time to heal." Mason Lane's arrest set off a media storm. In the age of 24-hour news cycles, the headline was too sensational to ignore. Billionaire's wife stalked by ex. Confrontation ends in warehouse arrest. Paparazzi swarm Montgomery Tower hoping to catch a glimpse or quote. Online gossip boards lit up with speculation about Harper's past, some painting her as a survivor, others accusing her of being a manipulative gold digger. The internet's cruelty was relentless. Strangers' opinions felt like daggers through skin already bruised. The negativity stung. But Sebastian was swift. He directed the Montgomery PR team to handle the situation with measured poise. His only concern was Harper's well-being. He refused to let scandal interfere with her healing or dignity. "Protect her peace," he told them. "Not just our brand." Legally, the case was strong. Detective Reyes's detailed statement, along with eyewitness accounts from Kayla, Juliet, and responding officers, painted an undeniable picture. Mason had knowingly violated a restraining order and escalated into physical assault. The district attorney made it clear they were pursuing felony charges. Mason's attorney tried spinning a narrative of heartbreak and confusion. But the public, and more importantly, the court, wasn't buying it. Most likely, Mason faced a lengthy prison sentence or a prolonged psychiatric hold. For the first time, the system was finally working in Harper's favor. For Harper, the emotional recovery would take longer. Nightmares still disturbed her sleep, and shadows of the past still crept in at quiet moments. But Mason's capture brought something she hadn't felt in years: relief. And with every day that passed, she found herself breathing a little easier. She could finally exhale without wondering what might be waiting around the corner. She channeled her energy into preparing for the baby, choosing soft pastels for the nursery, devouring parenting books, and signing up for birthing classes. It became her therapy, one drawer organized at a time. Sebastian, overflowing with gratitude, scaled back his international travel. He stayed close, devoted. One afternoon, as they shared a calm lunch on the penthouse balcony, Harper's phone buzzed. A message from Kayla. "Remember, you're stronger than you think." Harper smiled, her heart warming. The timing was uncanny. Maybe Kayla sensed that healing wasn't linear, that today, Harper needed that reminder more than ever. She thought about how Kayla had supported her decision to face Mason, nervously but loyally. She texted back a heartfelt thank you, realizing how much her support network had grown since the isolating days of her first marriage. Later that week, Kayla arrived with a surprise gift: a soft plush teddy bear, wearing a tiny t-shirt, emblazoned with the words "Baby Montgomery." Harper laughed, hugging the soft bear to her belly. She and Sebastian joked about baby names, whether they'd go with something traditional or something more modern. "What about Henry?" Kayla teased. "Or Caroline, in honor of your security chief?" Harper giggled, imagining their child named after a tough-as-nails former federal agent. It brought levity to their days, which were finally, blessedly, feeling lighter. Amid these peaceful moments, Sebastian arranged for Harper to attend private counseling sessions. At first, she resisted, insisting she didn't need it. but Sebastian gently urged her. "I just want you to heal, my love," he said, eyes filled with tenderness. Eventually, she agreed. In therapy, she unpacked the lingering scars from Mason's abuse, how it had shaped her self-doubt, her instinct to downplay pain, her tendency to withhold things out of fear of being a burden. She also discovered something else, her strength. She hadn't just survived, she had stood tall, faced the nightmare head-on, and emerged stronger. The media frenzy finally waned, swept away by the next celebrity scandal. But Harper's life had changed forever. Each day now felt purposeful. The baby growing inside her didn't just represent a new chapter. It embodied triumph over the darkness that had once consumed her life. In quiet moments, Harper often reflected on her journey. She had once believed that leaving Mason was her greatest act of courage. But now she knew that standing up to him, facing him directly with Sebastian by her side, was her true liberation. As her due date drew near, she and Sebastian looked forward to the future they were building. A family rooted in safety, in strength, and in love. Time marched forward, each week bringing Harper closer to motherhood. Sebastian supervised the finishing touches on their new home, a sprawling architectural gem tucked inside a gated enclave in the Hollywood Hills. Reinforced walls, top-tier surveillance, and lush interiors blended comfort with unparalleled security. Harper took joy in choosing nursery furniture. She positioned a soft, cushioned rocking chair by a large bay window that overlooked a private garden, her imagined sanctuary for bedtime lullabies. In her third trimester, she radiated. The Montgomery staff fussed over her, carefully crafting nutrient-rich meals and ensuring she lacked for nothing. Kayla joked that she had the entire Montgomery empire wrapped around her finger. Harper didn't deny it. It was luxurious, but she never took it for granted. She had once lived in fear, barely scraping by. Those memories kept her grounded. As Mason's trial date approached, whispers of a plea deal surfaced. He might face a reduced sentence, but only if he submitted to mandatory therapy and a strict enforceable restraining order. It was over. Now came the task of rebuilding the sense of safety Mason had spent years trying to erode. But with Sebastian's unwavering devotion and her own newfound courage, Harper believed she could face whatever came next. Still, the echo of his voice lingered. Her body was safe, but her mind kept replaying the moment he raised his hand. Her immediate concern turned to the baby. The confrontation had shaken her deeply. She kept one hand pressed to her belly, whispering apologies she wasn't sure her child could hear. Sebastian didn't hesitate. He called in a private obstetrician, Dr. Margaret Lowry, who examined Harper thoroughly. Despite the bruises and emotional shock, the baby's heartbeat was strong and steady. Tears of relief flowed freely as both parents clung to the sound. It was the loudest thing in the room, and the only thing that mattered. Dr. Lowry advised Harper to rest, manage her anxiety, and steer clear of further stress or confrontations. "Your body's been through battle," she said gently. "Now it's time to heal." Mason Lane's arrest set off a media storm. In the age of 24-hour news cycles, the headline was too sensational to ignore. Billionaire's wife stalked by ex. Confrontation ends in warehouse arrest. Paparazzi swarm Montgomery Tower hoping to catch a glimpse or quote. Online gossip boards lit up with speculation about Harper's past, some painting her as a survivor, others accusing her of being a manipulative gold digger. The internet's cruelty was relentless. Strangers' opinions felt like daggers through skin already bruised. The negativity stung. But Sebastian was swift. He directed the Montgomery PR team to handle the situation with measured poise. His only concern was Harper's well-being. He refused to let scandal interfere with her healing or dignity. "Protect her peace," he told them, "not just our brand." Legally, the case was strong. Detective Reyes's detailed statement, along with eyewitness accounts from Kayla, Juliet, and responding officers, painted an undeniable picture. Mason had knowingly violated a restraining order and escalated into physical assault. The district attorney made it clear they were pursuing felony charges. Mason's attorney tried spinning a narrative of heartbreak and confusion. But the public, and more importantly, the court, wasn't buying it. Most likely, Mason faced a lengthy prison sentence or a prolonged psychiatric hold. For the first time, the system was finally working in Harper's favor. For Harper, the emotional recovery would take longer. Nightmares still disturbed her sleep, and shadows of the past still crept in at quiet moments. But Mason's capture brought something she hadn't felt in years: relief. And with every day that passed, she found herself breathing a little easier. She could finally exhale without wondering what might be waiting around the corner. She channeled her energy into preparing for the baby, choosing soft pastels for the nursery, devouring parenting books, and signing up for birthing classes. It became her therapy, one drawer organized at a time. Sebastian, overflowing with gratitude, scaled back his international travel. He stayed close, devoted. One afternoon, as they shared a calm lunch on the penthouse balcony, Harper's phone buzzed. A message from Kayla. "Remember, you're stronger than you think." Harper smiled, her heart warming. The timing was uncanny. Maybe Kayla sensed that healing wasn't linear, that today, Harper needed that reminder more than ever. She thought about how Kayla had supported her decision to face Mason, nervously but loyally. She texted back a heartfelt thank you, realizing how much her support network had grown since the isolating days of her first marriage. Later that week, Kayla arrived with a surprise gift: a soft plush teddy bear, wearing a tiny t-shirt, emblazoned with the words "Baby Montgomery." Harper laughed, hugging the soft bear to her belly. She and Sebastian joked about baby names, whether they'd go with something traditional or something more modern. "What about Henry?" Kayla teased. "Or Caroline, in honor of your security chief?" Harper giggled, imagining their child named after a tough-as-nails former federal agent. It brought levity to their days, which were finally, blessedly, feeling lighter. Amid these peaceful moments, Sebastian arranged for Harper to attend private counseling sessions. At first, she resisted, insisting she didn't need it, but Sebastian gently urged her. "I just want you to heal, my love," he said, eyes filled with tenderness. Eventually, she agreed. In therapy, she unpacked the lingering scars from Mason's abuse, how it had shaped her self-doubt, her instinct to downplay pain, her tendency to withhold things out of fear of being a burden. She also discovered something else: her strength. She hadn't just survived, she had stood tall, faced the nightmare head-on, and emerged stronger. The media frenzy finally waned, swept away by the next celebrity scandal. But Harper's life had changed forever. Each day now felt purposeful. The baby growing inside her didn't just represent a new chapter, it embodied triumph over the darkness that had once consumed her life. In quiet moments, Harper often reflected on her journey. She had once believed that leaving Mason was her greatest act of courage. But now she knew that standing up to him, facing him directly with Sebastian by her side, was her true liberation. As her due date drew near, she and Sebastian looked forward to the future they were building. A family rooted in safety, in strength, and in love. Time marched forward, each week bringing Harper closer to motherhood. Sebastian supervised the finishing touches on their new home, a sprawling architectural gem tucked inside a gated enclave in the Hollywood Hills. Reinforced walls, top-tier surveillance, and lush interiors blended comfort with unparalleled security. Harper took joy in choosing nursery furniture. She positioned a soft, cushioned rocking chair by a large bay window that overlooked a private garden, her imagined sanctuary for bedtime lullabies. In her third trimester, she radiated. The Montgomery staff fussed over her, carefully crafting nutrient-rich meals and ensuring she lacked for nothing. Kayla joked that she had the entire Montgomery empire wrapped around her finger. Harper didn't deny it. It was luxurious, but she never took it for granted. She had once lived in fear, barely scraping by. Those memories kept her grounded. As Mason's trial date approached, whispers of a plea deal surfaced. He might face a reduced sentence, but only if he submitted to mandatory therapy and a strict enforceable restraining order. The prosecution's case was airtight. Mason's attorneys scrambled to minimize the damage, but it was too late. Harper's legal team, courtesy of Montgomery's most elite attorneys, pressed for maximum protection. She made her position clear. She never wanted to see Mason again. Meanwhile, Sebastian's business empire thrived. Freed from urgent expansion deals, he shifted his focus toward home, toward Harper. He went out of his way to make sure she never felt alone, planning surprise date nights, private screenings of her favorite classic films, rooftop dinners under the stars. They reconnected deeply, beyond survival, beyond fear. The baby's soft kicks under Harper's dress became a rhythmic reminder that hope was alive and well. One warm afternoon, Sebastian brought her to the new home for a private walkthrough. Harper waddled slightly now, her belly round and full, but her eyes sparkled. Room by room, she admired the design. The tall windows flooded the home with sunlight, and the open living space led to a quiet courtyard shaded with greenery. The highlight was the nursery. Painted in soft mint green, it featured custom shelving for children's books and plush toys. On the wall, a single framed quote read, "In this room, love reigns, and fear has no place." Harper teared up. Leaning on Sebastian's arm, she whispered, "It's perfect." He kissed her forehead. "Only the best for you and our little one." For the first time since Mason had reappeared, she felt it, the last link of dread falling away. This was their sanctuary, their future. That evening, they returned to the penthouse for what would likely be their final night there. Movers were scheduled to handle the transition, while the Montgomery security team completed the final perimeter upgrades on the new property. Harper stood at the glass wall, watching the city's lights twinkle. Just a year ago she had arrived in LA broken and uncertain. Now she stood strong, on the edge of motherhood, wrapped in the steady, unwavering love of a husband whose quiet strength mirrored her own rising resilience. She made a vow to herself in that moment. Her child would never know the fear or heartbreak she had endured. Later that night, over a cup of chamomile tea, she opened up to Sebastian about her postpartum worries. "What if it all comes rushing back?" she asked. "What if I'm not ready?" He squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together," he said simply, his eyes warm with promise. Their bond, forged in fire, now felt unbreakable. With a final look at the city skyline, they turned the page on a chapter filled with pain and healing, ready for a future brimming with new beginnings. But not 2 days into their new home, Harper stirred awake at dawn with a dull ache in her lower abdomen. She groaned, brushing it off as false labor, or just another ache from late pregnancy discomfort. By midday, the ache intensified, coming in waves. Kayla, who had dropped by to help set up the nursery, noticed Harper's tight expression and insisted they start timing the contractions. They were alarmingly consistent. Sebastian, in the middle of a staff meeting, rushed back the moment Kayla called. He found Harper pacing the living room, breathing through the pain, one hand on her belly. Concern furrowed his brow. "We need to get you to the hospital," he said, gently but firmly. Harper nodded, adrenaline rushing through her veins. She was nearly 3 weeks early, but Dr. Lowry had warned the baby might come ahead of schedule. Juliet Cross swiftly coordinated their departure, ensuring Harper's security detail flanked them from building to vehicle. Brief flickers of fear, of Mason, of the past, passed through Harper's mind, but Kayla softly reminded her, "He's behind bars, Harper. This is about you and your baby now." The only thing that mattered was a safe delivery. At Riverside Hospital's private maternity wing, the medical team prepped Harper immediately. Dr. Lowry arrived within minutes, connecting her to monitors. The baby's heartbeat echoed strong and steady across the room. But the contractions were growing more intense. Harper gripped Sebastian's hand, sweat glistening across her forehead. Each wave of pain felt like a reflection of the strength she had built over the past year. In her mind, she repeated a simple mantra. "This is for us, for our future." Hours passed in a blur of breathing techniques, calm reassurances, and hushed focus. Kayla waited just outside, sending updates to close friends and family. Juliet stationed herself at the end of the hallway, ensuring no journalists or uninvited eyes disturbed the Montgomery family's privacy. Through it all, Sebastian never left Harper's side. He stroked her hair, whispered encouragement, and tried to hide the panic behind his eyes. Finally, near midnight, it was time. Harper was moved into the delivery room. Her pulse quickened, sweat beaded across her brow. A contraction tore through her, and she cried out, clutching Sebastian's arm with every ounce of strength. The medical staff surrounded her, voices calm but urgent. "Push, breathe, push." Harper bore down, every fiber of her being focused on bringing this new life into the world. Tears streamed down her cheeks from the sheer intensity. Pain blurred her vision, but Sebastian's voice grounded her. "You can do this. I'm right here. I love you." Then it happened. A piercing infant cry split the room. The baby emerged into Dr. Lowry's waiting hands, tiny lungs howling with life. Harper collapsed back against the bed, sobbing with relief and awe. She caught a glimpse of the small, wriggling body, red and perfect. Pure wonder filled the room. The staff suctioned the baby's airways, checked vitals, and then gently placed the child onto Harper's chest. Warmth flooded Harper's chest as she felt that tiny heartbeat pulsing gently against hers. "It's a girl," Dr. Lowry declared, her voice glowing with pride. Emotion overwhelmed Harper. Tears streamed down her cheeks as Sebastian leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to their daughter's forehead. "She's perfect," he whispered, "just like her mother." They named her Amelia Rose Montgomery. The next hour passed in a haze of pure bliss. Kayla burst into the room, teary-eyed, hugging them carefully. Juliet texted the rest of the Montgomery team, who immediately erupted in a flurry of congratulatory messages. Amelia's first day on Earth was blanketed in love. The shadow of Mason's terror had been replaced by the bright light of new life. Lying in her hospital bed, Harper cradled Amelia against her chest and felt a deep sense of completeness. She had weathered trauma and heartbreak, but every painful chapter had led her here. To love, to peace, to a future unchained from fear. Sebastian placed his hand over Amelia's tiny fingers, his voice tight with emotion. "We're a family now," he said. "No one can take that from us." The next few days at the hospital passed in a whirlwind of checkups, interrupted sleep, and sacred, quiet moments. Amelia Rose Montgomery proved to have a strong set of lungs, letting out cries that demanded immediate attention. Harper, adjusting to postpartum exhaustion, leaned into Sebastian's steady presence. He surprised her with how quickly he mastered diaper changes and feeding routines, grinning as he joked, "If I can negotiate billion-dollar acquisitions, I can figure out a diaper." Word spread quickly across Montgomery Global that their CEO's daughter had arrived. Soon, gifts poured in. Embroidered blankets, handcrafted silver rattles, even charitable donations made in Amelia's name to local children's hospitals. Harper was touched. She thought back to the lonely, uncertain days of her first marriage, when she had no one. Now she was surrounded by warmth, support, and unwavering care. The day before their hospital discharge, Kayla arrived with a small box wrapped in satin ribbon. Inside was a delicate necklace, a fine chain with a single rose pendant. "For Amelia," Kayla said softly, "a reminder that even from hardship, something beautiful can bloom." Tears welled in Harper's eyes as she accepted the gift, the symbolism wrapping around her heart like a promise. That same afternoon, Detective Reyes phoned Sebastian with an update. Mason remained behind bars, and the case was moving steadily toward a plea deal. A deal. Detective Reyes assured them that if convicted, Mason would serve his time under close supervision. The legal details mattered less than the finality of it. Mason wouldn't be a threat any longer. Harper exhaled. The breath came out shaky, uneven, like it had been trapped in her chest for far too long. It felt like a breath she'd been holding for years, the last remnants of fear dissolving into nothingness. Finally, it was time to bring Amelia home. The staff had transformed the new townhouse's entryway into a quiet celebration. Soft lights, pastel balloons, and a hand-painted sign that read, "Welcome home, baby Montgomery." Even the scent of fresh flowers made Harper tear up. It was the first time her child crossed a threshold that wasn't shadowed by trauma. The sight overwhelmed Harper with emotion. She kissed Sebastian, deeply grateful. It hadn't been long since she believed happiness was out of reach. And now it was hanging from the ceiling in paper butterflies and twinkling lights. Motherhood proved both exhilarating and exhausting. Amelia's cries pierced the night, but Harper embraced every moment, every late-night feeding, every sleepy gaze into her daughter's perfect face. She often found herself imagining Amelia's future. Dance recitals, bedtime stories, unconditional love woven through every season of childhood. She would give this little girl everything she never had: safety, stability, and a mother who didn't flinch at shadows. She vowed Amelia would grow up learning courage and compassion, never shadowed by the darkness Harper had once lived through. Sebastian adapted seamlessly to fatherhood. Board meetings were rescheduled around nap times. Video calls happened with a baby monitor perched beside his laptop. The global expansion of Montgomery Ventures slowed slightly, but as he told Harper one afternoon, "What's the point of success if I can't enjoy my family?" Harper's heart melted. She had a man who valued fatherhood as deeply as fortune. Watching him cradle Amelia, singing softly off-key, made her fall in love all over again. Late one evening, after Amelia finally drifted off in her crib, Harper and Sebastian curled up on the love seat in the nursery. Moonlight bathed the room in soft silver. The hush of newborn peace wrapped around them. Outside, the city buzzed on, but inside these walls, time stilled. Harper rested her head on Sebastian's shoulder and whispered, "If someone told me a year ago I'd feel this kind of peace, I wouldn't have believed them." Her voice trembled, not from fear but from the fragile beauty of believing in something again. He stroked her hair, voice low and full of love. "You deserve it all, and if anything ever threatens this again, we'll face it together." She believed him completely. They had survived Mason's storm. They had forged a love that was steady, fierce, and unbreakable. With Amelia's presence, their story felt whole, yet still brimming with future chapters. And for Harper, the truest triumph lay not in Mason's capture, but in the way her deepest fears had been outshone by something brighter. Hope. Months passed gently. Each day brought new milestones: Amelia's first coups, the thrill of her rolling over, proud applause from her parents. The house hummed with quiet joy. Love echoed in every hallway. Every sound now meant life, not fear. Every silence was peaceful, not haunted. What once had been a fortress of protection had become a home. Shielded from Los Angeles's noise and chaos, the Montgomery home became a sanctuary of peace. Mason's sentencing came swiftly. The judge handed down a multi-year prison term, citing his repeated violations of the restraining order and his escalating acts of violence. A quiet hush fell over the courtroom. Harper didn't attend. But when she heard the news, a wave of relief surged through her. It was closure, clean, undeniable. She no longer needed to scan the shadows, no longer feared cryptic messages or sudden reappearances. The specter was gone. Still, a piece of her heart wrestled with sorrow. She had once loved Mason. Seeing him descend into obsession and darkness had left a dull ache. But motherhood had clarified her path. Safeguarding her peace and her child's future meant letting the past remain where it belonged, behind bars. Meanwhile, Kayla stepped into a vibrant new chapter of her life. She landed a prestigious marketing position with a boutique consultancy, found a cozy apartment in Silver Lake, and started dating a thoughtful journalist named Daniel Reyes. She often dropped by for Sunday brunch, doting on her goddaughter Amelia, playfully sparring with Sebastian about philanthropy, and catching Harper up on the latest downtown gossip. Sebastian, too, had blossomed into fatherhood. He still oversaw Montgomery Global, but he delegated more. He traveled less. The board respected his rebalanced priorities, and profits soared anyway, as if the joy at home had fine-tuned his instincts at work. He and Harper launched a philanthropic fund supporting women fleeing domestic abuse. In private, Harper admitted it was rooted in her own journey. She wanted to be the hand reaching back, to offer the lifeline she never had. Life's pace slowed into something richly fulfilling. Yes, the city still roared beyond the gates. Yes, the world still demanded ambition. But Harper found profound joy in the small moments, reading bedtime stories to Amelia beneath a starry nightlight, sipping tea with Sebastian in the soft hush after their daughter fell asleep. Each day reaffirmed what she'd come to believe. True wealth wasn't measured in dollars or deals. It lived in the arms that held you, without condition. The only trace of Mason that remained were the occasional dreams, flickers of fear that surfaced in sleep. Harper would wake breathless, haunted by echoes of the warehouse or the sound of his voice on the phone. But then she'd feel Sebastian's steady hand on hers, his warmth coaxing her back to the present. And each morning, when Amelia's bright eyes met hers in the early dawn light, the nightmares faded a little more. On a crisp autumn afternoon, the three of them strolled through Griffith Park. A breeze stirred the air, scattering golden leaves and carrying the laughter of nearby children. Harper, pushing Amelia's stroller, felt a wave of quiet gratitude. She had come so far, from a frightened woman walking away from her past, to a mother walking boldly toward the future. She had found not just refuge in the arms of a billionaire, but real love, real partnership. By the lakeside in the late afternoon sun, Sebastian slid an arm around Harper's waist. She leaned into him, pressing a soft kiss to his shoulder. In her arms, Amelia gurgled contentedly, reaching into the crisp breeze. They stared at the horizon, at a life rebuilt from the ashes of fear. A life now rooted in mutual respect, resilience, and unwavering devotion. Their story was proof that even in a world brimming with ambition, noise, and hidden danger, a safe harbor could still be found. For Harper, the final echoes of Mason's harassment had faded completely, replaced by the bright, living melody of a family writing its own story. A story filled with warmth, laughter, and a bond no threat could fracture. On Amelia's first birthday, their home was alive with celebration. Friends and family gathered in the courtyard, decorated in soft pastels and whimsical balloon arches. Kayla oversaw party games with practiced flair, while Daniel snapped candid photos for a lifestyle feature he was writing. Juliet, no longer security, now attended as a close friend, though she still scanned the grounds every so often, out of habit. Laughter floated through the air, blending with the sweet scent of vanilla cake. Harper, glowing in a floral dress, gently guided Amelia's chubby fingers as the toddler took shaky steps across the grass. It felt surreal, almost like watching someone else's life. Just a year ago, fear ruled her world. Now every step her daughter took was a step into a future unburdened by shadows. Sebastian raised a glass of sparkling cider for a toast. He cleared his throat, his eyes sweeping across the smiling faces. "A year ago we found ourselves in darkness," he began. "But look how far we've come. Amelia is our light, our joy. But none of this would be possible without Harper. Her strength carried us through. Today I celebrate not just our daughter, but the woman who taught me the meaning of courage. May we always stand together, in love and in safety." Applause rang out. Harper's eyes shimmered as she mouthed thank you to him. Her heart swelled as she remembered the nights when she doubted she'd ever feel safe again, when Mason's shadow felt permanent, when she questioned if she even deserved this kind of life. But now she held her daughter's hand, and beside her stood a man who had loved her through the storm. After the party, when the guests had left and the courtyard lights dimmed, Harper wandered upstairs. She found Sebastian in the nursery, gently rocking a sleepy Amelia. The soft glow of the lamp bathed his face in warmth as he hummed a lullaby, his expression filled with peace. Harper leaned on the doorframe, tears in her eyes, not from sorrow but from fullness. This was the man who had fought for her. This was the life they had built. And in that room where love reigned and fear had no place, she finally completely knew she was home. She had become a woman who found space to fight for herself, a woman who never let privilege overshadow love. No longer surviving, but living. No longer hiding, but standing tall. After gently tucking Amelia into bed, Harper and Sebastian slipped quietly into the living room. Harper curled up on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder. The weight of the day eased off her shoulders the moment she felt his heartbeat steady against her cheek. They spoke in soft murmurs about the future. Maybe a sibling for Amelia someday. The expansion of their women's shelter initiative. Perhaps even a sabbatical, to travel the world as a family once their daughter was older. For the first time in forever, the future didn't feel like a gamble. It felt like a gift. The house was peaceful, the night free of fear. Before they climbed the grand staircase to their bedroom, Harper paused by the large window that overlooked the garden. Moonlight blanketed the hedges in silver. The same garden that once looked like a fortress now shimmered like freedom. She stood still, letting the moment breathe. In the glass, she caught the faintest reflection of her younger self, the woman who once trembled in silence, uncertain she'd ever find safety again. Harper offered her past self a sad but grateful smile. That version of her had fought like hell to survive, and tonight she got to witness peace. And then, without regret, she whispered goodbye. Turning to Sebastian, she slipped her fingers into his. "I'm happy," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. He pulled her close, brushing a kiss across her forehead. "So am I," he whispered, "because no matter what storms come, we've already proven we can weather them. Together." His voice cracked, not from fear this time, but from reverence. For her. For all they'd built. Their footsteps vanished up the stairs, hand in hand, leaving behind echoes of a story once forged in heartbreak, now rewritten in hope. The Montgomery's future shimmered ahead, proof that love, fortified by courage, can banish even the fiercest ghosts. Because love didn't just heal, it rebuilt, stronger, safer, whole. Harper's journey, from a fearful wife fleeing torment to a deeply cherished partner and mother in a safe, loving home, reminds us all, real strength often comes dressed in quiet vulnerability, quiet bravery, and an unwillingness to give up. She faced menace and intimidation, and discovered she never had to face it alone. A loyal husband, devoted friends, a fierce maternal instinct, all stood guard beside her. Even when her past threatened everything, love triumphed. And what followed was a life bright with promise, for Harper, for Sebastian, and for their daughter Amelia. A life no longer overshadowed by fear, but illuminated by choice. If you found Harper's story gripping and inspiring, please like this video, share it with someone who might need hope, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life inspired narratives. Thank you for walking with us through this emotional journey. Your time, your heart, your presence, it means the world. Your support helps us continue to craft stories that celebrate resilience, love, and the unbreakable human spirit. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of a new beginning.